Welcome to Driving Your AI Strategy and Implementation. This is an edited recording of a live webinar we did where we had very interactive Q&A, but that has been edited out. If you would like to discuss your specific requirements, feel free to contact us.
So, I'm Andrew Gaule. I'm here with Dermot Hill. We're going to talk you through this overview of driving your AI strategy and implementations. So if you could please stay muted until you've got some questions, which we're going to hopefully have plenty of time for on that later. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and add comments or sort of ask questions. So for over 20 years, I've been working in this space of how technology is changing business models. And what we're going to be covering today is really thinking about what is your sort of AI strategy, how AI is going to be changing business models. We're going to talk through some of the perspectives about what's the purpose and objectives of changing your output, changing your AI. And your business using AI, and we're also going to be covering about what sort of inputs and outputs and what are some of the easy wins to do. We'll be giving some examples of case studies, but we really want to, in the second half of this session, get into some examples or case studies or perspectives or questions you've got. And also we're going to be really importantly looking at the people change aspects and how you can effectively partner to do your sort of implementations. So first of all, my perspective on that here, organizations need to have some clarity on their strategic artificial intelligence purpose. So what sort of things, looking in their crystal ball, do they think their business is going to be changing, how the world is going to be changing with artificial intelligence, with the power now that's coming from these large language models, from managing data and that, and also how they're going to make money and how the business model is going to change. So in previous sessions, we've given examples and used the actual tools. On this session, we're not going to use the actual tools themselves, but we will circulate to the participants the previous sessions we've done. And that sort of shows really examples where knowledge workers could now be enhanced or supplemented by AI systems. And of course, if your business model is charging out people to do knowledge type work, then that's going to change where you're going to be making your money in that from. So we're really going to be talking about the processes, the people and the partners that you need to align now to implement these strategic and financial sort of changes. So a few examples, which are taking a high level view from my experience of over 20 years in how business is being changed by technology. And you'll see the QR code there, you can scan and link to that. This is related to my book, which is around how value chains are changing that within industry. So the first example is around the energy space. So, energy used to be large power stations on grid. Now, of course, we're seeing smart devices, technologies to be able to manage energy in the home, energy sort of within businesses. But we've also seen over the last decade, the transformation with solar, green energy, energy hubs sort of within the home and sort of the electric car. And I'll come back to a particular example about that. But that's an example of how in different levels industries could be changed and that transformed by technology changing sectors. Health is another example where an old model and stuff that we're often sort of stuck with really, the health system is more a sickness system. It's about individuals getting sick and then how do we deal with them in hospitals. We are seeing more devices, we're seeing better pharmaceuticals, we're seeing fitness devices, but we're really not leveraging data to improve health sort of outcomes. Now we're seeing some AI examples of being able to analyze MRI scans, being able to do a lot better job in some of those areas. But how is AI going to change our behaviors and change how we can be healthier? In retail, an area that I've been involved in for some years, and at our AI summit at Henley Business School a couple of months ago, we saw examples from a couple of startups that are in the retail space using AI. So with the retail stores, high streets declining, we've seen the decline of department stores, we've seen the rise of e-commerce, but that is a very difficult sector to be able to make money in, as we're seeing with the cost of getting to customers through Facebook or Google, and the amount of returns within that industry is really challenging. Now with AI, like generative AI, and using those to get closer to the customer, be central to it, is that going to transform how retail operates? And Alan Gormley spoke at the AI Business Summit at Henley about how his business now is being customer-centric rather than just suggesting these people bought this product and wouldn't you like to buy this other product? So AI could really be transforming and working in that sort of area. And then I suppose one of the biggest examples we're now seeing about AI replacing or enhancing white collar workers. So consultants, lawyers, architects, they've been using devices, they've been using computer power and stuff like that. But the next level of using artificial intelligence to be analyzed, lots of data to be able to replace or enhance the services that those people are doing, to free them up to be doing more added value to the services in other areas. So I think the main point I want to pick up here is that AI is changing, is got the potential to change lots of industries in different ways. Now, the way I've thought about this in the past, and the topic has been about thinking about the value chain, thinking about how technology and data comes into your product sort of type offering. So in this simple schematic, we're now talking about devices being able to capture and store an awful lot of data, and how the finance model works, and how the relationship with the customer and the consumer could work. So let's just think of a couple of examples with that image and that in mind. So we're all familiar with Tesla. I took a bunch of executives to Tesla in 2008. And when their first production electric car was coming off the production line. And as I said to the executives and that then, this is not about just an electric motor in a vehicle. This is now an intelligent device with lots of data coming off it, Internet of Things, as some of you got Teslas or seen or know them, the cameras on them, the data capture of where it is on the road, the information about how the person is driving that vehicle is very different to the traditional internal combustion car industry. So now we're seeing the traditional car companies, now decades later, are now struggling to keep up with what Tesla is doing. Oil companies having to redefine what they're doing in their gas stations. Car factories having to spend billions on redesigning those. But I think the business model that Tesla's got, going back to my previous image of the value chain, we've now seen Tesla has built up its capabilities in the full stack of battery technologies, data, self-driving sort of aspects and that of it, which the traditional car industry has struggled with because they've outsourced for years to tier one sort of suppliers. And now they're struggling to change that. The relationship with the customer is changing. You go to a Tesla store or you order a Tesla and that online rather than the dealerships of the type network. And of course, the consumer interface to the vehicle with effectively an iPad in the car is quite different to the old sorts of models. And the finance model could change in that as well. When you've got an autonomous vehicle, why would you want to own a car? You could pay for the service sort of type thing. So that's one example from that value chain. Other examples we can talk about in a bit more detail is the value chain going to change for organizations, so such as a consultancy or a law firm. If they've now got knowledge and that internally within their business, and they can analyze that data, and the AI now can create the reports and create the outcomes that are useful for their customers, does it make sense to be able to charge by the hour or by the day for the services that that industry was previously providing? How is that model, the finance model, going to change? And what's the relationship with the customer going to change? So some quite fundamental issues in that there about how organizations and businesses need to think about their businesses and their use of tech. So in terms of areas that we can this sort of brings together some of the points about there are some low-hanging fruits and opportunities and tools that are available that we can start doing these things. So in a previous session we ran online, we went through examples of using generative AI, using video, using the capabilities to create images, which will enhance marketing and sort of things like that. And we are now seeing things like SatNav's legal sort of type services, the business model changing on billable hours. And we're seeing him being able to do coding. So for those of you who try to build coding and create programs and that in the past, if you wanted to do an IT project, you'd spend time scoping it. You'd spend time getting coders to write code and that from scratch. AI now, with things like GitHub, which is a repository and a system, an AI system for coding, you can now just start in plain text writing a request on an AI model that you want to create, and the systems create it for you. So we're going from the cost per line of code of having people coding it down from tens of dollars down to a few cents per line of code. And this stuff effectively sort of comes out of the box. So in the last 3 weeks, OpenAI has released what it calls a GPTs, where you can create your own effectively AI apps. And I've created 2 of those in that already to analyze investment reports and to be able to help with my sort of my podcast sort of areas and that as well. So proof of concept type examples. One of our partners in software spoke at the Henley Business Summit about the project they did with Coca-Cola as a proof of concept, where they took over 300,000 records of their operational excellence projects from multiple countries, from multiple sites, and used machine learning to be able to clean up that data and then use generative AI to be able to ask questions. So once it had all that data, you could say, I want to do improve the efficiency of my forklift trucks or operations in warehouse. Can you tell me where the best projects have happened? Can you tell me how I improve the operational efficiency in other sites? And the local management could create their own outputs, their own tasks, their own supported operations. So that becomes a powerful tool, which previously might have been taking which 6 projects can we do in a year. We have to employ consultants, we have to do training, we have to help them through doing the implementation. This can now be done by the AI tools and the AI agents. So we're seeing the ChatGPTs, we're seeing the DALL-E in creating images, we're seeing these different tools and that coming around. So the challenges are going to be for organizations along these different case studies, along these different sort of areas of use, it's just now opening your mind to the business processes and that with it. So please post in the chat some examples of areas that you're working on, or examples of case studies that you want to cover, and then we'll move on to the next sort of area. So Dermot, do we have any questions in that from the group?
Not yet.
Okay, all right.
I have encouraged them in the chat. So anyone, do come forward with questions. It's supposed to be very interactive, this session. You'll get much more out of it when you hear what everybody else is thinking about AI. So it would be good to learn. So do drop them into the chat, please.
Okay, Dermot, as you're speaking, do you want to cover now? I've talked about the purpose and some of the strategic changes. Dermot, you're going to talk a little bit about the people aspects and partnership aspects of how you can effectively do AI implementation.
Certainly. Andrew, thank you. So the market is actually moving very quickly. And what we have recently seen is Netflix not employing one CEO with AI expertise, but two. And the salaries were very big and very, very attractive. So they would have had no trouble filling those roles. But that suggests that there's people out there, large companies out there, looking to fill their top executive echelons with the star performers. There will be a war for talent coming up shortly. I can see that. So actually the job listings across all sectors which mention AI in advertisements are normally featuring 20% increase in the typical salary for that role and rank. So if you're into AI and you're online today thinking this is a career move, then you obviously are in a very good place at the right time. Interestingly, actually, Americast, which is part of the BBC, featured a story about OpenAI and Sam Altman. If you get a minute and you want to just acknowledge the fact that if you know Sam Altman, but he is very much a focal and indeed star in the AI sector. And he was asked to resign by the board, and the company decided that they were going to quickly resign behind him. And therefore the board had to retract that, reallocate Sam Altman his job. And that meant that the OpenAI team did not join Microsoft. Microsoft, by the way, is a shareholder in OpenAI. And that, again, was turmoil, and turmoil in less than a week, in and out, and he got his job back. And in fact, it's the board now that are now standing down. So the market is moving very fast. It's very people driven, and yet it's extremely technology heavy. And, the amount of engagement, and I dare say if we get to discuss it in a short while, Andrew and I will talk about how we used AI to actually create some of the content and the graphics for this event. So there's a lot of action in the market. And as I mentioned earlier, there is a war for talent, and it is going to get a lot worse. The people actually that have the commercial skills and the AI skills are going to become very, very much more highly sought after. And yet that's already quite prevalent in the way we're seeing the market develop. So it is moving very quickly. Andrew, the next slide, please. So people, I mean, I think that the hallmark of the people in the AI sector, because it is the new frontier. Andrew and I were comparing notes on how many evolutions we've seen from IBM compatible computers, the launch of the next big thing, but we both believe that actually AI is going to be even bigger than the internet. So it's a fantastic watershed for us all to draw on and capitalize on. And in getting involved in the sector need to have a pretty agile mind to work out how we fit in and what it is we want from that sector to actually give us the commercial cachet that we need to see our careers play out really well as this technology evolves. Clearly with that, you've got to think outside the box, and we've been doing that prolifically, I think, in the way in which we've set up this campaign. Again, more on that perhaps in a minute. There are going to be those that are highly paid. I've touched on that, but there are also going to be those that are not paid. And one of the great concerns about AI is that in fact there's going to be a mass of redundancies. It is going to change the shape of the workplace. And if you look at the World Economic Forum's report, the Future of Jobs report in 2020, they actually felt there was going to be a net gain caused by AI. But of course, what happens to those people, and it's a massive transformation, that actually have to change out of their current jobs? Are they going to get reskilled and so on? So it's not going to be without its challenges. But that's good, because of course, if you're working hard and you're thinking outside the box, you could then become one of the highly paid actually working on AI as a result. So the people and the culture, and it'd be fair to say that Andrew's written an excellent book, which is he's a great champion of. And he talks, in fact, in the book about scout bees and hive. And that is a very interesting way in which he has seen people feeling their way into the market to actually get things done. And the scout bees act as the messengers, bringing it back to the hive. And of course, there is, of course, within the hive, the queen bee. So you've got the equivalent of the Sam Altman. I know he's not the queen exactly. I'm sure he wouldn't like me to say he was, but he is obviously very, very influential in his community. So some really interesting things are going to come and happen around the people. Andrew, the next slide, please. So partnerships are going to be very important. And so there's obviously partnerships one-on-one where, you know, you're able to draw on each other's networks and skills. And I have to say, I have the great pleasure of working with Andrew on this. It's also one-to-many, and there are different formats. And on the right-hand side of the slide that you now see is what I would call a polka dot model, where companies are now going to collaborate much more readily because they need to be able to cover the ground faster. And what you're going to see then is rapid proliferation of new ideas, the growth of trusted partner networks. It's going to be very evolutionary, and it's obviously going to be driven a lot by opportunity. The exit, of course, for many of these companies can be a long time in the making. But a lot of the companies in the AI sector who are very attractive, coming up now for investment, have got quite short exit horizons, typically 4 years. Of course, effective partnering can deliver the great wins. There are going to be many more new business models come out of it. And the polka dot model that I referred to, I think, is just but one of many that are going to be out there, and we're all going to be able to operate within and capitalize on. Next slide, please. So how is it that we're going to get this done? There's no doubt the important thing about all of this is process. The great thing within a process is that you've got to have goals and objectives. And I'm not talking to you about rocket science planning here. You know, you've got to set off with modest goals and objectives and just keep breaching those and coming through and rebuilding and learning. But of course, with AI, you're working on a bedrock of technology that's almost instantaneous in how it can help you. Of course, the end of all of that has got to have a beginning. And the milestone achievements have got to be clear along the way. And the elementary, to complex project management processes will morph one to the other. But it's important to keep it simple at this stage. There is a shed load of opportunity in the market, and I think we're all in for a very exciting time. So want to open the floor up now for questions. There seem to be one or two coming in, for which many thanks.
So the next steps, driving your AI strategy and implementation. We'd be very happy to book a short one-on-one intro meeting to discuss your specific requirements. So I'll happily pick up with the ones on this call today if we want to put that in the diary to do a short talking specific. I think then organizations need their strategic review on the best way forward. So in my first cartoon, looking in your crystal ball, what's going to happen and what can you financially do now and what can you do and get most benefits in that from. And then how do you plan your updates to the tech and the value chain sort of progresses? But I think you've got to do some sort of proof of concept and that as well to get a quick win.
We trust you found this recording of value, and feel free to get in touch if you would like to take your next steps in implementing AI for business benefits.